Hi, everybody. Welcome in. My name is Ernesto. You're listening to DIY Soul, which remember, DIY stands for Design Dialing into Your Soul, because we use a dial in Uranian Astrology. That's what we're all about here. I have Viretta here on the line, and we'll be with you here for the next hour to talk about unlocking your spiritual potential. That's a huge topic that we all sort of need to talk about. And I know we've sort of gotten into this around the concepts of mindfulness and meditation, but we don't actually know what happens when you start to see those sorts of changes, which is what this show is dedicated to. Now, I do want to let all of our subscribers and our listeners be aware that we are moving to Spreaker next month, starting in November. We will be leaving the Blog Talk Radio Network. This is the last of our time here this coming week. And Viretta, I just want to confirm with you that we're still on for the 31st at from 7 to 8 p.m. for a free reading show. Is that right? That'll be next Tuesday.
Oh, really? We need to maybe reschedule that. Next
Okay.
Tuesday? No, hang on. I'm sorry. It's all right, honey. We'll do whatever we need to make our show go on. Folks want to hear it.
Okay, perfect. So we are going to be doing free readings for you guys next Tuesday. That'll be the 31st from 7 to 8 p.m. If there are any reschedules, we'll definitely let you know on our next Sunday program so you can plan accordingly. But we will plan for that until then. So that'll always be on the last day of the month, unless if we all have other things coming up. Now, Beretta, what is it that we
All
need to
right.
know for the next week coming ahead? What are the big standouts for us?
Okay, let's take a look. So, for whatever it's worth, the first thing I see are sunsets. And I'm seeing people look at the sunset with appreciation. They're allowed to be, open with their remarks. So I feel like that has to do with individual liberty, where people learn through others the strengths that they may lack or have lost. So for right now, I'm thinking what I'm feeling is there's a lot of makeup energy. Makeup being you're going to create whatever you want. If you have to go back in time and start there, fine. And by that, I just mean go to the source and move forward. But it feels to me like a lot of people are going to be in a periphery of just on the fence and or very opinionated. So just remember this next week is really going to hold you accountable to what you say, what you do, and how much loss that prolonged behavior created. And I know that sounds a lot of jaja, but it really is something that people need to be aware of. And if they're so complacent that they just take sides with people because they don't want to fight with anybody else, then they need to look at themselves to find out why it is that's their norm. Why do they just keep their reserve of opinion to themselves? And a lot of self-discovery will begin also this within the next week, and that will tie into whatever the old was or whatever it was that they needed to stop. So lots of work for some people and lots of sunsets for other people. And you know what? The sunsets could be for the people that had to work their butt off, and maybe they're appreciating that too. So there's room for a little conflict, but it's only going to be based on how you interact, how you deal with people. We're going to be looked at like, I don't know what's going on, and I'm not sure I want to be in the same realm as those people. But the reality of it is we're a whole bunch of us, and we're here to stay. Metaphysical isn't going away anytime soon.
I like what you said about doing some damage control because I've definitely been doing that recently. It's just sort of like, for whatever reason, I decided to go off on a bender and get involved with some escapism. And it's not like I have needles hanging out of my arm or anything like that. It's more like really sort of vanilla things. Like I play too many video games. Like I should be doing my work rather than focusing on taking down the stupid dungeon that never really goes away. And what ends up
Mm-hmm.
happening is that I'm having to do all of this remedial work. Like, oh my God, I should have had this done 3 weeks ago. Why have I fallen this far behind? So I've really taken the time back to focus on all of those other things that I just sort of let slide for a while. And I really like what you said that this is sort of a week where we have to go back and focus on that because now I'm at a point where it's just sort of like, well, crap. I'm out of money. I'm out of resources. I've really sort of burned myself out here. I guess the only choice that I really have now is just to actually sit down and do the damn work. All that procrastination stuff, it's just not working anymore. It's time to move on. Let's move forward. That's the best thing that I can really be doing for myself. So 100% agree with where we're heading right now. I can already see that coming down the turnpike.
Good. Good. Well, see there you go. There we go.
Now, I do want to let everybody on YouTube know, if you are listening to us, you can call in at area code 319-527-6071, and we will get you in the queue for your free reading. We will be doing generals today about unlocking your spiritual potential. We're going to be talking about that today since that is the subject of our show, and we do look forward to catching up with all of you about that. Now, Viretta, what does unlocking your spiritual potential mean to you?
It means okay, there's a lot of steps to that, but it means that you are able to be authentic, not just with others, but yourself. And when you start to embrace that authentic nature, usually pulls someone toward a higher source above themselves, and not a person in flesh. It creates a bonding for people to understand there's something out there. It creates answers for people that aren't quite sure what they're hearing. They can believe. It's a very common thing to do, but those traits, if they're real, they're not going to go away. So, and somebody shouldn't overshadow me like I don't know what right now. You hear the tone of my voice is different. So there's definitely a lot of things that you can benefit from metaphysics, but you got to start with self first. And you got to be real with yourself about what it is and what it isn't. And from that flow, move forward in what direction you want. If you're intended metaphysics, fine. If you're intended ego growth, fine. But move forward. Don't get stuck in a rut. That's where metaphysics come in. When you get to that point where you don't, like you said, you're out of resources. You don't have any more rope to hang on with. So the only choice is to let go. And that's where metaphysics will follow you, and they'll buffer you.
And, in the language of astrology, let's take a look at this really quick. My computer screen is doing all kinds of weird things at the moment. I have no idea what's going on. It's very odd. I'm actually kind of not surprised, as Viretta said, she kind of has a frog in her throat about something. All of the IT stuff on my end is just sort of blowing up. But let's take a look at this. We can see here that in the language of astrology, there are 4 different ways that sort of we can connect metaphysically with ourselves and take a look at what's happening. And the first one has to do with the Aries point, or the vernal point, which is 0 degrees of Aries. That's the beginning of the zodiac. Every single person has this in their chart. It is a constant, so it is true for everybody. And then we combine it with the planet Neptune, which has to do with spirituality and vision. And we can see we have all of these different columns. On the top, we have words like empathic, intuitive, daydreams, needs pragmatism, needs self-defense. So these are the remedial areas where those people who have those planets strong in their chart need to sort of work on themselves. And then they're also future-oriented. On the negative end, we have things like easily misled, self-disparaging, may need stability, uncertain or insecure. So these are like the negative choices. So remember, these top 2 columns that we're looking at, these are the choices. These are like, I can be either one of those things. And then depending on what you choose, what you pick your poison to be out of those top 2 items determines what happens in the bottom 2 items, which is what manifests in your actual life when that comes to pass in your chart. So that can be privacy or mystery all around. That can also include things like sacrifices out in the world, the intangible, secrets or secrecy, dissolution all around. Or negatively, that can be things like uncertainty or instability all around, denial or withdrawal relating to public settings, public confusion, and chaos out in the world. So these are those positive and negative of those 2 planets. If we go a little bit further, we now involve the meridian, which deals with your soul. And all of which one we use actually sort of just depends on what's most active or busy in your chart, because there are 2 different planets that we can use, and then also 2 other personal points that can pair with them. But again, that depends on what's happening in your chart, because you are unique and we don't do cookie cutter astrology. That doesn't work for us here. So if we add the meridian into this, then we see things like intuitive, empathic, and Viretta. This would be you, by the way, because you have a lot of like you work professionally as a psychic medium. So a lot of this you will
Right.
really resonate with at that stuff at the top. So like you can probably
Mm-hmm.
resonate with needs to develop power or strength, needs pragmatism. These are the areas where you sort of have to work on yourself. And then on the negative end, you have things like weakened, may need stability, not always reliable, unrealistic, easily swayed. So those are the negative choices. And then on the bottom, again, what manifests in your life when you have a triple midpoint that comes to manifest. Then we're looking at things like dreaming of the future, me and privacy, or the unknown, or unrecognized. And then on the negative end, we have things like me and secrecy, personal uncertainty, inner confusion, me and deception to go astray. So remember that if you in this particular case, if you are confused or confusing, then you're likely to go astray, which means that you're just going to get lost. You're going to get knocked off the beaten path. And that's very hard to recover from. So these are the choices that you have in any given moment. What I love about Uranian astrology is if you're looking at the things about yourself that you don't really care for, like for me, for example, I am not a nice guy. I am kind, but I am not nice. Those are two entirely different concepts. And something I am not really looking for into changing at the moment about myself. But if I ever wanted to, then I'm going to just look at our guidebook and say where are all of the things that are about like meanness or nastiness, the defects to my personality that I've endured as a result of brain damage. All I have to do is just take a look at the rule book and say, okay, so these are the things that I struggle with. Those are all the negatives. Now, what's my choice here? How do I change that narrative? And then a lot of that would end up being manufactured because you're just talking to a wall at a certain point with me because you just cannot get through because of all of the structures that have been affected. So, what I really love about Uranian astrology is that we can choose here what we want to be in life and what we actually manifest. And so, if we look at the next one, having to do with Uranus, this is dealing with the future, and whereas Neptune deals more with our vision and our dreams, and Uranus is dealing with our future, and it also deals with destiny at the same time, suddenness, things that we cannot control. So this is quick to size up situations, intuitive, unpredictable, reformist, technically inclined. Now, if you're not technically inclined, well, then that's just sort of unfortunate, really. That's something that you should really sort of work on. I was not technically inclined prior to starting this show. I could just barely get by with the basics, and I seemed to do okay with it. But then when I ended up entering the space of audio engineering, TV production, all of this other kind of stuff, just to create this show in the form that it's currently at, that was a gauntlet and a half to get this far. And I am so glad that I did all of that because it's truly made my life a lot easier. As I hit new roadblocks, I say, oh, based on what I already know, then I can just use X, Y, and Z, and then I can get the results that I want. So if you struggle with anything in life, really focus on those areas because it's amazing what can happen once you do step out of your comfort zone to change yourself. The negative ends of that Aries Uranus, you have things like impulsive, frantic, transitional, unsettled, non-committal. So transitional, this would probably lend to something like issues with housing if we look at other things in the chart and start to break that down. So I mean, if you're living negatively on that axis pole, then other areas of your life will definitely be affected depending on what else is there. So these are things that are all individual and personally unique to the human, to each and every human being. On the negative end of the manifestations, we have unexpected occurrences out in the world, public excitement, public reforms, public anticipation. So whenever something like revolution or rebels are involved, like Uranus is usually going to be the planet that's involved with that. So all of the nonsense that's happening in Israel right now, like that's all a huge revolution that's about to happen. Like the regime,
Mm-hmm.
the structures, those are all like coming down screaming, and everybody's egos are just like kicking and screaming at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And while we have this tornado that's going on in the news media and also out in the world, once all of that nonsense is over, the end result will totally be worth it because it's like we're talking about like literally thousands of years of tradition that's just being broken. It would be the equivalent of the money machine breaking in the United States. Like, what the heck would happen if capitalism came to an end? What would we do then? Like, people just don't have any possible idea what that would look like. It would be glorious, let me just say that. But the process of getting to that point would probably be quite uncomfortable.
Yeah. And that I had totally forgot about the Israeli stuff, and that absolutely pertains to where I was seeing them sitting on a wall and making a choice. So that actually makes sense to me now that you said that, because I wasn't seeing it in my head a manner of who it was. I was just seeing it as personable. So yeah, we have a lot of changes coming, and there are so many um, directions it could come from. So, to think that we are going to escape any kind of backlash to what's been going on recently, that's not even realistic for the way we have to live. So I understand what you're saying based on what I see. And there are some choices people are going to have to make a steadfast commitment to, so that whatever their new form of being is can survive until they, gentrify it and get it to where they want to live.
Now, let me take a look here. So, Veretta, what role does mindfulness and meditation play in connecting with our spiritual potential and exploring metaphysical concepts?
Okay, so when you sit down and meditate, you have to be able to clear your brain of all thoughts. And there are multiple forms of meditation, and it doesn't matter which kind suits you, as long as your intention is not to block anything that comes. So when you're sitting down, you have the opportunity to go in many directions, as far as like what you think, what you say, what you wear, who you are, where you go, what you be. And the reality of it is we don't feel that repercussion in regard to what other people go through, but we're going to have an understanding here very shortly exactly what that means. Because if you're really thinking that the U.S. isn't going to get into some kind of conflict, you're wrong, and that's what we see right now.
Well, life can't always be kittens and rainbows as much as I want it to be. And, like whenever I love it when people are having a problem with something, and then they're asking for help, and then you give them really good ass advice, and then they just put up some red tape or barrier as to why that can't work, and it's
Mm-hmm.
usually the reasoning is usually total BS, and or some other type of like self sabotage that just doesn't make any sense or follow any type of normal logic. And when I go through that, I am stabbing people with my eyes. I am literally throwing daggers with my eyes at people and my thoughts. It's just sort of like, if you don't want to listen to the advice, then why the heck are you asking me questions right now? Like, this is the time when
Yeah.
you need to get out of my breathing space because you're wasting my time. So I've kind
Yeah.
of gotten to the point where, like I used to be so fierce where if there was any conflict, go away. But now if there's conflict and people just can't deal with it, it's just sort of like, I'm just going to watch Rome burn because that is the safest place for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And honestly, picking and choosing your battles, deciding what hill you will and won't die on is a really big thing, because again, we're talking about enlightening us. So when we're doing a meditation, we're intending for that to be something that benefits us. And when you get to that point of having that process come easily, then what you're going to expect is a lot of communication from source. And so then the next step would be, well, who's my guides? Who'd be talking? Where are these people that are supposed to be helping me? And that's also what meditation presents you with an opportunity to do. Because once you're in that state and you know how you got there, it won't be hard anymore. So when you get to the point of sitting down to meditate, you can go from zero to, deep trance if you wanted to, once you know how that feels, once you know what is the extension of that plan. And with that meditative source, then you're going to find options in metaphysics. You're going to find so much. You're going to find answers to your own questions that maybe you had for decades ago. And so it really is attainable for you to remember or see things that you can't without. And meditation, mindfulness is just a matter of opening doors for you to know how to get to where you think you want to go. It doesn't force you through those doors. You have to want to go and commit to go through those doors independently. So when you're looking through metaphysics and you're trying to improve yourself, this is not a get it quick thing kind of thing. It's one of those things that you have to work a little bit at, and then you get the response. But in the working on where you're at is the trouble for a lot of people that can't or don't or won't put in the work they need to do to establish rapport with their guides. Yeah, I'm a professional medium, and so I've been going on this now for over 30 years, and there's a few things that has never changed. And the consistent in those things are the intent we set for what we want to learn and what we can attain and how what we're going to do with it. Because if you think you're going to get spiritual and then, live on La La Land being seen as the big guru, you're falling way short of the right integrity to do what you need to do to get that going. So it's really a matter of what you've got in your heart, what you want to intend it for, and how strong you are in that manner. And that then will move you to go to the next level of understanding metaphysics as a source of hope, as a source of faith, as a source of strength and conviction. So there's a lot of benefit to meditation, and there's a lot of benefit to just being mindful in your manners, because you become what you think. And that's never layered. Through my 30 years plus, I've never, ever seen that anything different. It is what you think. So if you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to open a big center, I'm going to be real public, and I'm going to be a famous person. No, you're not. No, you are in bed with the devil, basically, because you're saying, please give it to me, but I don't want to do the work. And that's not how it goes. If you want something in a metaphysical line, you've got to learn to deal with it from the metaphysical foundation, not from the foundation of, I think I know what I need to do, so I'm going to become part of the market and get some money on this and make me rich quick, because there really is a market for learning what you and I already know, Ernesto. There is a market, and people want to go experience those things without committing to them, and that's what's creating false hope. You've got to be in it for the right reason. And if you are, then the answers start to come quickly. If you're not, you're going to be stonewalled and mad and, worried about how come you don't get any answers. And again, we got to come right back to, well, what did you want to do with that information once you got it? I want to go open a shop and have crystals and readers and nice music. And okay, we'll go do that, but don't plan on being successful, because spirit doesn't work like that. Spirit doesn't work for you in the manner of capitalism, or the manner that you want to gain some type of status with people, and that's not part of this game. You don't do it with status intent. You do it from love. You do it with integrity. You do it because that's supposed to be the way it always happens. And those of us that have chosen this path know that mindset doesn't waver ever. The integrity of what you're doing is always on top of the end result.
But how can we differentiate genuine spiritual growth from New Age trends and pseudoscience in the realms of metaphysics?
Well, one of the biggest things is when you do sit down and meditate, what do you get? Do you get a lot of imagination throwing stuff at you that really just comes from your subconscious, or are you actually communicating with spirit? Well, all right. So let's.
How do you if your imagination, like, what is that? How do you know, like, what a wish is versus what's real?
So what you want to know is that when it's real, it will never come in a form a derogatory comment, whether it's about you, about someone else. So when you're sitting there and you're thinking, wow, I'm getting real good vibes, and all of a sudden this voice in your head says, you rock, man, you do it better than anybody else does. That's ego. And you have to understand that's ego, because spirit is always going to cheer you on without the opinion of ego. And so that's what you want to remember. That's what matters. Spirit will always give you choice, never dictating a direction, ever. And it'll always be a choice, even with 1 foot on the physical plane and 1 foot in the ethers. You have to make proper choices through integrity. So how you know the way they talk to you. You know the way they feel. You know that when they come around, it does nothing but lift you up. You know that these are guides or or people's present in spirit, you know for a fact that you're being buffered. And as you expand your knowledge of what is and isn't acceptable in the metaphysical realm, you start to talk with the people that really matter. Now, let's cut back to the New Age stuff. New Age is going to be giving you a crystal and a glass of water and telling you to drink it all down and you're saved. Holy Mary, you're saved. That's not the way this works. It's not about what you use. It's not about who you choose to support you. It's about your integrity. So you sit down, you get quiet, and again, this little voice starts coming around. Have you considered maybe doing da-da-da-da? Or, hey, what about that object? Is that potential? They're going to make you look in it as at that directive and emotion. And it's not going to be something where, you're struggling with yourself. Well, is that from high above or is that my ego? If your ego is in line for whatever's going on, in a metaphysical world, it will take a back seat to what you do and what you get when you're asking permission or asking for questions of spirit. Ego will take a back seat. So when you start to see grandiose things happening, when you start to get grandiose opinion or information from wherever, that's not good spirit. That's most likely ego and or spirit that you don't want to associate with. You got to remember those type of experiences happen too. So getting a rapport, making a rapport with your guides, knowing who they are, will always be able to prevent anything from coming at you because they're building a buffer zone, especially when you ask them, hey guys, I need a little support right now. Give me a little space. And they will work that magic for you. That is how they work, in that they help you get along further down the line than you were before. It is not cutting corners, carrying rocks in your pocket, saying, I'm a healer, come here, let me rub your arm. What? Who does that? People that don't know, people that would like to be in the New Age stuff that says, no, what I have is helping people, so it must be metaphysical. No, it's a marketing ploy. It's not metaphysical. You can paint it all you want. It's only what it is if you don't have pure intent. And so you see a lot of these shops now, a lot of these shops now, where people don't even know the vocabulary of what's going on. I'm going to clean your chakras for you, and you're never going to have that problem again. No, that doesn't work. We can't offer you something, anybody can't offer you something that you should get on your own. If you're going to clear something out, you're going to do it without the word chakra involved, and you're going to know what that feels and that intent is. So you got to get, like I said, you've got to be authentic with yourself. Really, what are you doing this for? Do you want to meditate? Do you want to practice metaphysical thing? What do you want this for? Do you want to become a celebrity and go solo? That's fine too, but don't come back to my class, man, because I want people that want to learn. I want people that want to receive. Just like you were in the setting point a long, long time ago, Ernesto, when you wanted to know how to trance appropriately, you got that information. And I didn't let you go half-cocked out the door thinking, oh, well, that was money good earned. I didn't think like that. My whole intent for you was that you could believe and become strong in the metaphysical environment. And whoop, there you go, you are. So you watch how ego has played for you. Specifically, oh, look at that one. That one looks juicy. Let's go see if we can get on that. No. You want to start with a friendship first and build it into something that'll last. And you have learned that exponentially along the way. So, it's just a matter of understanding, again, who's right, what it feels like, where you're going with it, and be able to say, I'm always going to hold myself in contempt if I don't respond to spirit in a positive, spontaneous way. And then that needs to go right out of your brain, because that contempt then takes you so far away from metaphysical and back in the ego line that you got to work back up into the line to get to the metaphysical. And it's around you every day. So it's not like, well, I can't make it work. No, this isn't a light switch you turn on. This is something you live and believe and breathe and eat, and you're not aspiring to become someone. You are someone. And that's the difference. When Spirit's talking to you metaphysically, you're never going to hear anything that will do anybody harm, yourself or them included. You're never going to hear them say, oh, you're better than everyone else. Go do it. You deserve it. You're never going to hear spirits say it's okay to screw someone over because you're really a nice guy on the inside. However, you got a lot of ego over on that side going, yeah, let's get this, let's do this, let's take a Reiki class and do it online and be a master over the weekend. Oh my God. So the New Age people, the only thing I have present for New Age people is that's the people that's where you find the people that are wanting to find themselves. And if you get to them before someone, New Age guru, does, then you're not going to be worshiping them. You're going to be worshiping yourself, because the only thing you need to do is understand is spirit is present 24/7, and it's a matter of you tapping in whenever you want, not when they come around. Now, the caveat to that is, yes, when they do come around, if they hadn't been previously, you sit down and listen. Don't try to design a time where they come through. If they're coming through you organically in a moment when you're not ready or you're not sure about what's going on, just chronicle that information for future use, because it's important to have it. So a lot of times, if you're not in a position to receive it and you know you can't write it down, spirits come back with it a little bit later. You're going to get it. They work with you. They really do. But you have to let them.
I like what you said about being in bed with the devil and, capitalism and that whole thing about like starting a metaphysics shop or something along those lines. It's about the equivalent of when you go to a vitamin store and you're asking the employees for genuine advice and help because you don't understand what's right for you, and maybe you haven't done your Google searches yet. And then the employee, they literally just read what's on the bottle, and it's just sort of like, are you kidding me? Any monkey can do this. Why am I spending my time, at this place, with these idiots? I love it when they do that. And when I first moved to Washington, and I had tried to I started my very first radio program way back when. I was in like a tarot class or something like that, and I was telling people that I was on the radio at that time, and somebody made the comment, "Oh, we have a celebrity in the class," and then I just sort of, very snarky made a comment that, well, anybody can be a celebrity if you pay enough.
Mm-hmm.
Which
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, if you pay enough into the system, you can make anything happen. So, I mean, and at that point in my life when I wasn't even doing astrology in the current form that I am today. And I immediately thought, like, well, what can I do to create this beautiful career and become the equivalent of an influencer, because that term didn't exist in mainstream society at that time. But that was basically sort of what I wanted. And then as I started to go down this path, I was just sort of like, this is not for me, because it was really more about my separation and the process of getting out of the business of metaphysics, that everybody's an idiot. And, like that they all just want to do all of this new age woo crap and all stuff that's really pretty and sparkly and looks really nice because it has artwork and design. But I'm here to tell you that that's all marketing, and I know this because I used to be that guy. And one of the things that Alfred Vitta used to really believe in when he first set out Uranian astrology was one of his 6 tenets was that the astrological system must negate any artistic, solely intuitive, and superstitious applications. So people who try to do all of this pretty fancy artwork to catch your attention and everything else, again, that's just marketing. Like the logo that you see for this show, it looks really pretty and it's eye-catching, but it's just marketing, and that's all that it is, and I accept that. And everything that I create today is not that. So like if you look at the textbook that I've written, I don't have any other pictures that are really sort of unrelated to the subject issue or to the subject of choice, because I wanted to start adding all of these pictures in there, but my editing partner just sort of said, why are people paying money for a book to see pictures of your dog? Like that doesn't make any sense. So that, again, that's marketing, and that's why that's a red flag, by the way. So whenever you start to see those sorts of things in metaphysics or literally any sort of self-help program, and things are flashy and they're pretty and they really eye-catching, those are the types of things that you should be running the hell away from, because those are the people who are going to try to figure out how do I put my hooks into this person's bank account because they're a sucker just because they signed up for this $97 course or whatever it was.
Right, exactly, and that's a big, this amplifies. That's a large amount of people that, will try to practice any type of meditation, metaphysics, altered anybody that's got the interaction of understanding that sometimes it goes slow, and you may not be getting any information that you want to have or that requires your attention right away. But the reality of it is you're always learning, and if you learn to step into the etheric world in a manner that you can emotionally connect with them and not even say a word, then you've made it into the realm of metaphysics, and you can actually do something with any kind of ability. Now, I want to bring up something too with that. Just because you may have a metaphysical ability, and everybody does, so it's not like you're better than anyone else. It's like, did you develop it? You have the right to walk away from anything that doesn't feel good. And those are one of the times where you have to be able to say, okay, this is enough of me wasting my time. I got to go in a different direction. And again, if somebody has actually come in this direction to find what is real, that's great. That's what you grab. You grab the people that really want to know, and you start to funnel them over to someplace that they can take the time to learn appropriately and not, just go broke trying to find that one person that makes you an overnight success. And right, you want to be a celebrity? Yay. So here's the pun on that. Just because you're metaphysical doesn't mean you're spiritual. How does that happen? Oh, so people that assume that they can read and then apply that to the astral self, they're going to pretend like they're all that in a bag of cookies too. But the reality of it is, just because you can read someone, just because you do, doesn't make you a nice person. And that's the integrity part. Spirituality cannot be had on the back of dollars. It cannot be had on the back of get rich or do it quick kind of thing. It's not on the back of, oh, watch me and what I do to heal. I go into these shaking convulsions. Why? That's not, okay, whatever, but that's not real. So you got to remember that if you have any type of ability and you develop it with integrity, then it can't go wrong. It's going to be there to guide you no matter what. Like I say, if you let spirit work with you, it will. But just because you can read somebody or heal with your energy doesn't make you spiritual.
Yeah, those are definitely two entirely different concepts, because what ends up happening is that people will try to gaslight you, and then they'll just tell you, like, how dare you try to question, my beliefs or my lifestyle or whatever word that they want to throw in there. And so and so, Annie Benanni is truly a closet narcissist, and we don't know that. That doesn't really sort of play out, or it's not very, very noticeable when you first meet them, because you're just sort of like, wow, this person knows everything about the universe, and they can teach me everything I ever wanted to know. And then as you go deeper down that path, you realize, oh crap, this is kind of bad. There's a lot of really terrible things that are happening, and now my mental health is being affected. So I need to pull myself the heck out of this. And like what I always do is when I cannot pull myself out of something because it's just my ego's loving it too much, or maybe it's just something that's actually genuinely decent for me, like there's something to be learned there, then I always just say a prayer and I ask Spirit, dear Spirit, please do whatever you need to do to take the structure away from me, because it is just not working out. And and lo and behold, it will always happen that something is just ripped out from underneath me when I least expect it, and it's sort of a shock, and then I'm left out in the cold. But being left out in the cold is much better than dealing with metaphysicians, people who practice metaphysics, who do not embrace the spiritual aspect of life. Like I may have all kinds of issues, but if you bring them up to me, I'll actually listen to you. Like that's the difference between me and other people, is that I acknowledge that I have all of these defects and deficiencies, and I'm aware of that. And many of them I choose not to work on because I just don't have the time or the energy for it, and I'm too old now, because this is something I should have done a long ass time ago. But if you bring it up to me and say, Ernesto, you really hurt my feelings when you terrorize me every single day by bullying me into submission. Would you please not do that? Then yeah, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I understand that that's just a program. That's just something that I fall into. But if you bring it up to me, I will listen to you. That's the difference between me and other people. So when you start to have that experience where it's just sort of like you feel personally attacked, and then you're just not able to get through, and then you're just talking to a brick wall, that's when you have to pull yourself out of something, because it's just not healthy.
Right, right. And people, the funny thing is people do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. So you looked at and pledged to the lighter side, and that is what saved you in that. You probably won't have a lot of issue down the line. And as far as you get what you get what you give. That can start coming around in a positive manner. As quickly as you do something for someone else, something for you pops up, and that's instant. And how spirit can help you like that means you're already tapped into that integral part of spirit, and they're going to utilize you and or feed you whatever you want. You just have to request, and like you said, it's a prayer or a mantra or whatever you call it, to set the stage for you to be able to rise your energy up and meet the spirits that need your attention and see or hear what they have to say. It's really not that difficult. You just got to get out of your own way.
And what's really interesting to me is that there is this whole subset of people who do Uranian astrology who are all into all of this like past event analysis and political things and all of that kind of stuff. And they love to practice astrology, like to actually work with it and use it. But the spiritual element of astrology, absolutely not interested, and that does exist,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. Like those souls, maybe that's just something that they're not here for. That those are not lessons that they're ready to endure or to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why that it's like that. So sometimes you'll have people, who maybe they give really good ass readings and you're just sort of like, wow, that really knocked my socks off. But then when you try to talk to them about anything about like mindfulness, meditation, spiritual life and living skills, then that's just all like alien speak to them. And that's just very
Mm-hmm.
simply because, like literally anybody can learn how to do Uranian astrology because it's just science. It's basically math. It's like learning how to do algebra. Anybody can learn how to do algebra. Now, how you apply it, how you make it work in your daily life, that's entirely up to you. If you want to take this work and apply it into your life for the sake of bettering yourself and other people, well, then good for you because that's what it's meant for. That's why we do it this way. But if you want to just do it for all of that past event stuff, then that's okay too. That's just what you use it for. But, don't have a conversation with me about like things that you're doing that don't apply to what my work is because my scope is very narrow and I keep it this way because I'm good at it. And when you try to, extend into all of these different directions, then it's just sort of like master of none, which is really not a great place to be.
Yeah, right. And, as long as your self-confidence and your conscience is happily helping you eagerly, you don't need anything else. You just need to tap into source. And you can, because you're streamlined, you can get infinite answers no matter what. So if people are seeing that or hearing that, they're going to think, ooh, look at him. Who is he? What did he do to get there? They're not going to realize that it took you years in the making to get where you're at. And the minute you find somebody that does understand that it's taken decades of your life to get here, those are the ones you want into your system. Those are your new tribe or your tribe that's always been there. And you can agree to let go of the old stuff that is toxic or no longer promotes you. And it's something that you need. And then not only is it then something that you need, it's something that someone else is eventually going to need, and you're going to teach them in kind like you were taught. And it's not going to be a big ego thing. It's just going to be, okay, here are the facts. If you want it, fine. If you do not, that's fine too. But I'm still, I'm going to be here preaching it. It's not going to change. So if you want to come in and learn to discover yourself, come on in. The door's always open.
Now, what are some personal practices or rituals aside from mindfulness and meditation that have been helpful for you and effective in helping to unlock your spiritual your spiritual potential through metaphysics and exploration?
Well, so one of the things I started to do pretty early on, it was teach others. And those people basically are where I learned to tempo that I taught then in the future. Because that kind of was even before I ever picked up the idea that becoming metaphysical is going to be something that I could do down the road. I always thought that, it's just a little luck charm, giving me a little bit more money. But the people that are learning what they're learning, they're getting, monumental stuff out of it. And I through my regular life every day learned that there's just a handful of things we need to do for ourselves like we would do for other people. So when you're getting into a position of knowing you're going to be talking to, being in the group of, you bubble up, you bring your energy up so that you're okay to feel whatever's coming at you, but at least you're going to have a minute or two to reflect before you have to decide how to respond, if you do it all. And that's where you start to create the link or the mode to turn on to get to spirit in the matter of an instant. And after that, it's just about listening to what comes on. You know, it's like tuning into the radio and waiting for the next song to come on. Well, so you can do the same thing with spirit, and you, again, is fourth, and yours is perfect. Yours is integral in the fact that you're asking for some form of some way to communicate to spirit that is not going to be lethal to you. And that's what spirit provides. When you ask for specific things like that, that's what spirit provides. I don't use any rituals per se, but I do check in with my body, and I do check in with spirit every day to find out if there's anything that I need to know that's coming up. And it always informs me, well, this is what's going to happen, so get ready for that. Or, you know what, that's going to be okay, so don't stress over it. And that really does set the tone for my day. I don't have to worry about what's to come. I don't have to worry about being ambushed. I'll have plenty of tools to use. And, you know, here's to say, what if this is something that I need to learn? So I'm going to let it happen. Either way, I'm not going to get in the way of spirit working through me. Therefore, they'll always be there. And that's the connection that I make every day, whether I'm reading anybody or not. I tap into my energy. I know how strong I am. I know if I'm a little bit puny. So by the end of the day, I'm learning to take charge of myself and what I need to carry on. And that really is something that a lot of people, they enable others to get away with just being a martyr and taking care of other people over and over and over until they drop, because they've got nothing beside them, nothing around them to buffer the information, and they can't let go of what they've absorbed, and they don't understand that healing is not something that you do. It's something that comes through you, and as well as channeling, it's not something you do. It's something that comes through you. And so your body has to be ready every day to accept whatever challenge that spirit may bring to you, and you be able to say, okay, universe, I got this. No problem. I may get flayed here along the way, but guess what? I'll be stronger for it, and I won't do that again. And those are the things you set your tone by. Are you learning, or are you discovering by fire? And you'll learn how to get out of the fire soon enough. But a lot of times when that happens, the old regime you have around you fall away. They don't know you. They don't want to be in league with you because it's something they can't trust. And the only reason they can't trust is because they don't know who you are, or they're not sure about how much status you carry and what it's going to take along the way to get to your level and or just meet you. So there's a lot of things you need to do every day, but one of them would be to start to check into the body, find out what it needs, give it what it needs, or at least send it to source, and go about your day. You just go about your day living until something comes along. And people sometimes just don't get that. Well, why did I see that, or why did I not see that? Well, because you weren't meant to, and there are reasons for things like that. So, you go a little bit further in your metaphysics, and you spend a little bit more time in taking the facts away and removing the emotion from what you're doing, and then voila, you've made it. You've been able to change your course of action. You're able to let that buffer zone hit the miscontent. You posture yourself so it's not going to be a blow to you physically, and move on with your day. If somebody needs to hear something in a very strong, abstract way, then so be it. Spirit will line you up for that dialogue, and you won't get away. You won't be able to get away because that's not something, it wasn't something you were supposed to get away from to begin with. So now there it is. You're going to learn it now. People aren't too old to learn anything, and they can apply it in any manner they want to. But the reality of it is if you're in a spiritual space and the metaphysical to boot, you've already made it a long, long way from the people that are really trying to get to that extent of life. But, life just happens. And sometimes you just got to put that away and think, well, I'm not going to be a metaphysical master, but maybe I can just start doing some meditation, and that's enough right there. That is enough to get you going into the direction where you'll stay, is giving up the ego, giving up the pompous, just giving up anything that's for show, and understanding that it's about the work. It really is. And again, it's not coming from you, it's coming through you. And therefore, don't get all egotistic when you can say to someone, oh, see what I did? Look at that. I'm a so-and-so or such and such. Yeah, so what? So's the next guy. So bring me something that's unique. I don't want to hear this stuff anymore. And that's really the only thing you can say, because honestly, until it actually is about you or it affects you, it shouldn't even be in your space. So don't worry about picking things up. Oh, I missed that. I didn't see that before. You weren't supposed to. It's a matter of thinking on your feet. And if you can, and Spirit will always throw little tests like there, when you're ready for the universe to help you succeed, you're going to make it the whole way. And you won't sabotage yourself. You won't pull anything out from under you. You won't meet people that are crappy, that are going to sway you into a different direction. You're going to see all of those things and grin, knowing that that's not you. That doesn't support you. Never did, and you're not going to let it do it in the future. And that's where, when you broke away from your Uranian group, that's where your integrity comes from. You come from that space of, I can't learn from this individual anymore, because the hate they throw is not something that I want to field. I don't want to have to be in the presence of someone that thinks they're God and learn from that. And you take a little bit of what you know and you go and do your own thing. That's how I learned. I took a little bit of what I knew and I started my own thing. I never promoted myself as anything other than an instructor of light. I held no credentials at that point, and people still came in. And some of those people still practice to that day what they learned in those settings. So that's what makes me effective. I know that these are long-term things. It's not just a quick question that I can answer. It's a modality or a way of life that you can adapt. And through these things, you start to learn and manufacture and manifest the things that you want, and it's no longer you gotta pay your dues, so you don't get much, but this is what you're going to get. So make it happen. From there, you just build up. You don't cry that you didn't get enough of something. You just build up, and when you get to the place of having a strong foundation, you're good as gold, because you can tap into that whenever you want, and that's the way it should be for everyone.
But don't you agree that there are certain things that we are just not supposed to know at any given time? Like, I had a dream recently that, there's some stuff happening in my chart down the turnpike that looks really juicy, like that I really want to dissect this and figure out what it's all about. And I had a dream recently where I was looking at my chart for that particular month to try to do the work and put it under the microscope, see what's going on. And then all of a sudden, a pop-up comes up on my computer with a Post-it note that says, "Let me do all the heavy lifting for you, God." And it was just sort of like, okay, so I guess I'm not supposed to know that. This part of the human experience, you got to leave that alone and just live day by day, one day at a time.
Exactly, right there. One day at a time. You be present in the moment. You don't go in the future and fetch stuff back to where you are. And by that I mean, you see something in the future that's going to happen, you start agonizing over that. Why go there if it's in the future? Don't bring it here. If it's in the future, it's got agony. Don't start now. That's not going to make the situation any better. But what you can do then is subtract the ego from what you're hearing, and then then you can start paying attention. Then you can start knowing that what you're receiving is true stuff. And whomever that comes from, you may have had the time to get a name. You may have only learned that through the vibration that they emit and you seek. So, it really is your comfort zone and what you're capable of doing that Spirit's going to honor and is going to help you through that. And like the sticky notes, that's exactly what we need to see. And if we're open-minded to that, we will get enough every day of learning what we need to know for the future. And we don't need to go there and agonize over. Same thing about something that's happened in the past. Why keep dragging that with you? It happened back there. You feel some way about that back there, but if you don't put it to bed, it'll always be something that overflavors, overflares anything you want, because you have to drag that negative energy with you. So again, the intent is be here in the moment, be present. Don't worry about what happened back then. Don't worry about what's in front of you. Worry about where you're at right now. And most likely, things like that will always bring you the intent to what you need for the future. And you don't have to beg, or you don't have to like to the last minute go, oh my God, I don't have. You just need to put feelers out and know that Spirit will work for you the best that they can in any manner possible, as long as you let them. So being universal, being awake, you are able to take things and figure them out, not try to push a round peg in a square hole. You get what you need, and then you teach it by whatever someone's coming at you, and that what they want can happen. Therefore, you're never trying to match something up with somebody that it's really not for them. And, that I would say for people, if you want to go to a meditation class, don't sign up for a 6-month program. See how it feels the first couple of times, and then if you want to stay, fine. But if you don't. And that's, you don't have to lose money on going to see someone that just really wasn't out to help you. They taught you a lesson, and sure enough, if you're not supposed to be told, that information isn't in there. But the reality of it is there is an answer, and when you're told, that's when it's supposed to happen.
Absolutely true, because you will hit all kinds of roadblocks. Everything will fall apart along the way. All of your efforts will just be thwarted because they don't work out. And that's because it's not the right time. It's not the right person. You're not supposed to know this. But if you just keep pushing, you will eventually get towards that answer. But it might take a while, because remember, Spirit works in its own time. Spirit is eternity. It's infinity. It lasts forever. Human concept of time doesn't really apply in that sense. So what I gather from our conversation with you today, Viretta, I know we're sort of running out of time for our show, is that the best place for anybody who is beginning their spiritual journey and unlocking their spiritual potential through metaphysics, the best place to start is going to be through mindfulness and meditation, checking in with their self and with Spirit through their body. I guess body testing or kinesiology would be one form of that. But that we begin to unlock our own spiritual potential, but first and most importantly, by our discovery of self. Is this right?
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay, now, what other advice?
And so let me just one more thing about that. When you know who you are and you don't like it, that's where you have opportunity to change.
Now,
if you know who you are and you do like it, then don't do anything.
What other advice do you have for people who are just starting out their journey in metaphysics and spiritual living?
There's many types, and so what you want to do is take some time to learn what form fits you. If it's, a very over-the-top, you need a group of 30 people sitting in a very unanimous, autonomous class, you're really not learning anything, let's say, than what the people beside you know. You're learning how to take care of yourself metaphysically, and so that will trump everything. Anything that comes to you, it's supposed to grow in a happy, meaningful moment. So don't take things at heart when it happens to you. It's not personal. And again, I'm going to reiterate, if it doesn't feel right for you, get out and go somewhere else. If you can't do it in meditation, go to a sauna or just sit in a hot tub and think for a little while, or feel for a little while how it would be if you could just operate like that at any moment in your life. So you find the right thing that's for you, and you incorporate that into your life, and that's what matters. As long as it's a growing or a universal love, conditionally intent, then you got it made. Don't worry about whether, was that it? Did I miss that? Oh my gosh, that might have been no. If you're doubting or you're skeptical or you're wondering, hunting, was that the sign? The answer is no, because you're going to hear things clear cut. Don't make decisions based on fuzzy, not congruent stuff. Just make your choices on what's right for you, whether you're sitting in a group, one-on-one, solo, doesn't matter. What's right for you is what counts. And there's many forms of guided meditation and white noise meditation and nothing's playing at all meditation. and just which sect of that type of modality helps you the most, and that's where you're going to want to go for your own personal growth and well-being.
The best advice that I could give anybody is, if you're going to get into any type of divination within metaphysics, pick one thing and be really good at that one thing. Spreading yourself out into all of these other different modalities, it just creates all of this noise and this clutter that distracts you. When I was first getting into all of this, I soaked up everything that I possibly could. And I was doing like those tiles, and I was doing numbers, and I was doing cards, and I was doing astrology, and it was just sort of like everything conflicted with each other so much that there was just information noise at this point, where it was just sort of like, no, I can pick and choose what feels right and what I like. And then what I don't like, I can just sort of ignore. And if I don't like that, well, I can pick another card. That doesn't really work that way. So the reason I'm good at what I do today is because I focus on this one thing. The reason Veretta's good at what she does is because she focuses on one thing. And when you spread yourself out over all of these different modalities, you might do them moderately well, but not really enough to be of any sort of value or meaning. So when you're being introduced to all of this stuff, just pick it up for what it is. Learn a little bit here and there, just so that way you have the knowledge and the information to be able to say that you know what that is. But then pick the thing that you really, really connect with and just stick with that. Like, I was a Spanish major in college, not by choice by any means, because it just happened to be that I always took Spanish classes throughout my entire undergrad. And at the very end of it, where I was just sort of like, oh crap, well, I have to graduate. And my advisor says, why don't you just declare a Spanish major? You have enough classes. And I was just like, okay, that makes sense. So because that was the one constant that was always a part of my life, despite all of these other really wild and wacky major changes in my career path. So when you stick on that one path and you focus on that one thing and you get really good at that one thing, then that's when you're going to start to find the magic and meaning in life.
Correct. And so kind of to be fair, I did have to pick one modality when I began, but I had a slew of lines into different modalities that I wasn't interested then. And my mentor said the same thing to me, Viretta, just focus on one thing at a time. And I did, one thing at a time. And I got to the point to where all these other things just started happening, and I knew that I had to be aware about what was going on, which also pushed me or pivoted me into a position of wanting more education. And so when I got my bachelor's in transpersonal counseling, for me, that was an easy fix. It was such an easy, fit for me to be able to apply my intuition through that form of modality and healing. And for me, I just incorporated it into any class or any one-on-one, any reading that I gave. I give a little bit of that to people to begin with, and hope, when they go away, if I've planted a seed, that they can grow it.
Well, we do want to thank everybody. Well, we didn't have any guests for the show, actually. So, Viretta, thank you so much for being on the show with us and having this dialogue about spiritual life and living. That's our brand here at Celestial Intersections Radio. It was always a pleasure. And we will be back with you guys next Sunday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Arizona time for another program. Next week's episode will be on the Alchemy Annex. It's a little bit of a different format. I don't know what that topic is going to be about just yet, so do stay tuned for those announcements. And on the next Sunday show, we will also announce when the event date for our free reading show that'll be coming up during that week for the end of the month. So for all other things Uranian Astrology, be sure to check out the link tree where we have everything all posted out for you. We actually have a menu of services now, which we never had before. So this is how much we're coming up in the world, as we're actually like putting on our pants and getting real about these sorts of things. So we really do appreciate your listenership, and be sure to subscribe, like, and share the joy and love of Uranian Astrology out in the world.
You got it. Absolutely. And have a blessed day.
Yes, everybody, thank you so much, and we will catch up with you guys real soon. Until next time, good luck and Godspeed.